I think maybe we're live, but Kirsten is having problems with her camera.
Yeah, I think it's right.
I'll say hi, everybody, while we're waiting for Kirsten. It's great
hi,
to be
everybody.
here. As with these things, we planned all of this for the last 15 minutes, and then when things go live, it happens.
It happens, yeah. So let's see if she can make it back.
Maybe if people are joining at the moment, if they want to just put into the comments here whereabouts in the world they are. I'm over here in the UK. I'm about an hour from London, and Alejandro is in Miami. So if you want to just kind of let us know while we wait for Kirsten to come back, whereabouts everybody is.
Yeah.
I'm imagining we have a lot of people from Germany. Hi, Munich.
Dance Munich, Germany.
I've not been to Germany, actually.
Me neither, but I have family there in Germany.
Oh, do you?
Oh, yeah, right. I have
Whereabouts?
I have a cousin. I don't remember the name of the place right now. But I have a cousin. She's like my sister. So she lives there.
And Frankfurt as well.
Frankfurt, yeah. So a lot of people in Germany. Hello.
Yeah.
There.
Hi. Well, it's nice. I mean, one of the things that's nice about this as well is to speak with people who are in different parts of the world, in different tarot communities. I think I'm getting a miss. I'm messaging with Kirsten at the moment. Okay, I'm just messaging with Kirsten. It appears that her internet has crashed.
So I don't know if we should leave and start over when she's back.
Yeah, I've just put here. She's just responding. I've just asked what she wants us to do.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still getting more people from Germany, Austria.
Yeah. Oh, hi. I think I have family I do have family from Austria. Once again, I don't know whereabouts because it's my cousin's wife is Austrian.
Well, my cousin's wife is actually Austrian too.
Oh, really?
He lives in Germany, but he's from Austria. And my cousin is from Cuba. I'm from Cuba. So she moved there, and they got married. They've been living in Germany from like 10 years or more.
Oh, okay. I've just got a message from Kirsten saying that she's just rebooting another few minutes to see whether she can get it sorted. For anybody who's just arriving and wondering what's going on, Kirsten and I were and Alejandro were all here just 15 minutes ago, and everything was just fine, and we tested all of the sound and all of the visuals, and as soon as we went to the trailer, we lost Kirsten. She froze and her internet went down, so she's advising me at the moment just to keep talking for now, and hopefully she will be on.
There's some people here asking to tell them something about the deck. I don't know if we should do that or just wait for Kristen. What do you think?
Well, I mean, we can say that, you know, the deck that we have here is Tarot Ambiguïtés, and this is something obviously that Alejandro and I worked on together. It is out now. You can buy it through Artisan Tarot, which is a US-based company, and Artisan are known for creating tarot decks which are of the Marseille tradition, usually. So they restore old versions of tarots. And with this one, we kind of twisted it up a little bit. So as much as it's based on the Tarot de Marseille, it's also very much based on what was in Alejandro's head and imagination, and also in his background and understanding of tarot. So I can show you a few pictures of the cards actually while we wait. Kirsten is still, she's switched off her Mac.
I think it's important to say that Artisan Tarot, they started running these Kickstarter campaigns, restoring historical Tarot de Marseille decks. I think the first was the Convert Tarot de Marseille, which was a very successful campaign. Then came the Noble, and finally the Dodal. So they have been restoring tarot decks, and bringing those images to the modernity, with printing them with modern technology. So I think this is the first deck they have that is a little bit different in that style, because it's not a restoration. It's a complete new reimagination of the 22. Not the 22. It's a whole deck, 78 cards of the tarot. So that's what we've made here.
Yeah, and I just noticed that we have William Rader, who is
William Rader is
Tarot, here in the comments. For anybody who's coming in and wondering what's happening and where Kirsten is, as soon as we went live, her internet crashed, and she's in the process of trying to reboot and start up her machine again. I have her down here in my comments on my phone, and she's keeping me up to date. So hopefully, keep our fingers crossed that she will be back. Otherwise, I'm guessing we'll have to reschedule. But for the moment, we've just been saying hello to people in the comments and just finding out where everybody else is in the world. And at the moment, it's mainly people from Germany. And I speak for myself when I say that I don't speak German, so
me neither.
And neither does Alejandro. So hopefully Kirsten will be back to answer some of the German questions. And yes, Dance Fan, it's a great deck in the sense that you can trace back to the origins of the Tarot de Marseille through this deck. You know, anybody who's familiar with those historical decks will be able to see links within this, but also you'll be able to see where Alejandro has kind of spun off from some of those visual references and done his own thing. There's many twists in the deck which are really exciting generally, but they're really exciting for people who understand the Tarot de Marseille as well, because it just kind of adds a whole new lens, a whole new angle to the cards. I'll show some more while we're waiting. It looks like we're going to have to reschedule because Kirsten can't get live. She says it's never happened before. So I think the only thing we can do now is just to kind of say, I'm so sorry that we couldn't do this today, but I'm sure Kirsten will have a new date up for us to talk. So apologies, and thank you for everybody for being so patient. So
yes,
I'm
thank
gonna
you for being
it's
here,
a
for
shame.
being patient.
But if you're interested in tarot ambiguities, and you're or if you're interested in tarot de Marseille decks, go and check out Artisan Tarot at artisantarot.com, because you'll find this deck there and many other wonderful restorations. And they don't just do tarot decks, they do loads of other interesting tarot related merchandise as well. So go and check that out, and hopefully we will be able to all reconnect sometime pretty soon. Okay, I'm seeing that someone says, well, this is Germany and technology today. Yeah, unfortunately, there's a link in the comments there from William for Artisan Tarot if you want to go and check out this deck. And then we'll be back here to talk about it at another date. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Now I have to work out how to... Okay.
I think it's just press leave and that's it.
Okay, see you later.
Okay, bye. See you later.
Yes, if everybody, if anybody is still there, right now I'm back in the net. I don't know what happened. I just wrote to Stephen that perhaps if Alejandro and he still have the time, they could come, and if not, we have to reschedule. I'm really sorry for that. My company just decided to do a relaunch without notifying me. So I see what happens. Stephen is now writing to me. And Yes, and nice of anybody who's here live. I just saw that people from Artisan are here as well. William Rader. William Rader is obviously to do with Artisan tarot, where you can deck the deck I'm supposed to talk about with Stephen and Alejandro. So yeah, I don't know what's happening. And there's another note from William. Actually, you can register with Artisan. I also have the free newsletter, and you get invitations for free lectures with Alejandro, and I think also with Stephen. So it's actually a really nice site you have there, William. But I think the boys are not coming back. So I don't know. What chaos! What chaos! think I need to give up. So it's a bit complicated to reschedule because Stephen is sitting near London. I'm sitting in Hamburg, and Alejandro is US based. So I don't know. I think we leave it for tonight. I'm talking with them. One moment. William is talking with them. Hey, there's.
Can you hear me?
Oh, what a mess! What a mess, Stephen. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I kind of kept people talking for a little bit, and now we need to try and get hold of Alejandro.
Yes, please. William is actually working on that, as far as I can see.
Yeah, I just asked William. I tried to call Alejandro because we were messaging, and then he disappeared. So maybe he's popped out of his room or something.
Well, he said he was not feeling so well, so perhaps this is the reason. So sorry for that. Just when we went live, my telephone company said they're going to do an update without telling me beforehand. But let's see whether he's showing up or not. Perhaps now that I have you here, we just can talk a bit about how this deck came to pass. So basically, first, please pronounce the deck for me.
You know, my French is about as good as my German, Kirsten. So, Tarot de Ambiguïtés. I think that's how we say it, but don't quote me on that. That's how I've been saying it. So, or Tarot of Ambiguities. The reason it came up is we were saying when we were looking at the images initially that, you know, that we wanted it to be quite ambiguous, and I said to Alejandro, well, why don't we just call it Tarot of Ambiguities, you know? So that's how the name came. But generally, take it right back to the beginning. Alejandro and I first became friends, or we got to know each other on Facebook. I don't know who friended who, but we did. And I saw his artwork on Facebook, and I was just kind of blown away. It's like, oh my God, where has this person been? You know. And after a while of talking to him, I said to him, you know, would you be interested in, because at that point he didn't have any tarot decks out, but he'd been working on tarot images. And I said to him, would you be interested in doing a cover for the esoterical? And he said, yeah. And he came up with this one, or at least this is one of the cards that he had done already of the Pope.
I will show this bigger. We practiced this before going live. So
this is one of the many images that Alejandro had. It's beautiful, you know, and this obviously is just a detail of the card as well, because, you know, we had to have it to fit on the cover. So I asked him if he would be up for an interview, and that's kind of what we did. You know, we did an interview with him in the magazine and highlighted some of the different cards here that you can see.
These are all his cards?
They are, yeah, and these are all from different tarot decks that he has been working on. I think all of those 3 tarot decks are complete. Alejandro draws a lot, you know, and he paints, and so yeah. So then initially, that's kind of how we got to know each other, and then I think probably some months later, he sent me a message and said, "Would you be interested in working with me?" And I said, "Yeah," straight away. I didn't even know what it was, but I said yes. And we decided we would do something together. But at that point, I'd been moving back towards the Tarot de Marseille again. And I said to him, if I do something, I'd really like it to be based around the Tarot de Marseille. And he said, well, that is exactly where I would like to go as well. So he started to do some drawings. And at that point, we had no idea what we were going to do with it. But he would send me a drawing in the morning perhaps, and I would say, oh, you know, that's really great, and but maybe, you know, that part there in the drawing, you know, what does that mean? Or maybe you could add a little bit of this, or maybe I'm not sure what that means. And then he would rejig the drawings, and that's how we worked. So we would be conversing every day. He would send pictures through. I'd wake up in the morning and find these lovely illustrations, which at the time didn't have any color.
So when you say, sorry, but when you say you worked with him, I couldn't introduce Stephen correctly today because I wasn't live. I don't know what you said about yourself, but Stephen lives in England and is a very prolific artist himself. My first chat online for the Tarot Association was with you during Corona times, and we talked about your spirit within tarot. So what contribution did you give to the deck, or did you just talk with Alejandro what to do for his art?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really need to tell him really much, because, you know, he already had a really great understanding of tarot history and tarot generally. So it wasn't like I was working with a completely blind illustrator who had nothing to do with tarot. He already had all of those ideas, and, you know, he's very well read in Marseille and also the Thoth tradition as well. So you know, he knew his stuff. But in terms of decks generally, and being somebody who has bought a lot of decks, read a lot of decks, sometimes, you know, it's good to have those fresh eyes in there, and to say, oh, you know what does this mean? Or maybe you could add this. When it came to me writing the book with, you know, the deck, the same kind of thing happened. So in the morning, I would spend some time with 1 or 2 of his images. I would write the corresponding text to that, and then I would send that to Alejandro, and I'd say, what do you think of that? And he would say, oh my God, that's, you know, that you said things there that I hadn't even thought of. And then we would talk back and forwards about the deck. So, you know, we would discuss kind of what the cards meant or what the cards could mean. And then he would fill me in with a little bit of information about what he'd intended by certain symbols, and I would kind of incorporate that into the text as well. So it was very much a back and forth process between the 2 of us, rather than him just loading a load of pictures at me and then me just writing a book without any interaction. So
interesting. You said you went back to the Tarot de Marseille. When was this, and why?
I got to a point where I mean, I started my tarot journey in the mid-90s, and I'd been reading with Rider-Waite-Smith style decks since then, working professionally probably after about 10 years. So I used those decks a lot, and I got to a point where I felt that I was regurgitating a lot of the same stuff. So, you know, you might have the death card and you would say, oh, well, you know, in the future here, we have some kind of transformation or ending come in, or, oh, you know, we have the death card, it's in your past. We're looking at something that has finished, which has an effect on what's beginning now. And I felt that I was just kind of taking a lot of the same information and just moving it about and repeating myself. And what I always really enjoyed about the Tarot de Marseille, looking at other people who have written about it, is how you could take images or selections of different images and read them differently every time. You know, you could read them in a very open way, and you could see how in one card somebody seemed to be moving towards something else, or you know, they were telling stories in 3-card layouts or lines. And I really liked that idea, because I felt that I was actually reading the cards rather than just kind of repeating information that I'd learned. So
interesting. So it's a kind of fresh start.
Yeah, I felt I needed to maybe, you know, kind of change things up a little bit, because I think, you know, in any kind of reading, whether, you know, you're reading Lenormand cards or you're reading tarot cards or what have you, I think sometimes you need to kind of put it all back and kind of start again sometimes to freshen up your practice. And I think, you know, what this did for me, even in terms of my Rider-Waite-Smith work, was that it kind of just took me away from that for a little bit, so I could kind of try other things, so that when I went back to that, I kind of looked at it with a new viewpoint, you know. So yeah, at that point I really needed to just kind of make a bit of a change, and the Tarot de Marseille was the deck that kind of called to me from the cupboard.
And Alejandro learned the Tarot de Marseille. Did he start with this? Okay.
I might be wrong, but I think he I know he's read extensively about the Thoth as well, but I think my knowledge of his tarot is that he started off, I think he saw a deck on television and he couldn't remember much of what he'd seen there, but he was so intrigued by the tarot that he went away and created his own deck as a young person, with just what he could remember. I think that's how it all started out. So he doesn't have the deck anymore, I don't think, but some of the cards, I think, kind of maybe were inspired by what he'd seen, and some of them he just kind of created. And I think from then on, he's had this kind of this bug to just keep creating tarot cards.
And he came up with this idea for a tarot of ambiguities. And so, I know you can show us some pictures, some proofs. Have you done this already?
I didn't do that, no. I just showed
perhaps that people get an idea what we're going to talk about in a second session, because we really need to talk with Alejandro as well, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
So perhaps you can show us a few of the images.
So these were the proofs, and this is when I first showed the deck to Kirsten in London, because Artisan Tarot, who are the company that are publishing this deck, they sent these through because they wanted to make sure that all of the colors and all of the symbols were as perfect as we could possibly get them. So I received these proofs. There you go. Of the deck, actually, and I showed them to Kirsten in London, and I took them along for people to see there ahead of the deck actually coming out, and then we have the box here.
So actually, if you can re-show the first proof and put it a little bit closer to the screen, so people can say, for example, the heart down, put it down a bit, down, and to your left. Yes. So if you can see the heart, it's the Ace of Cups, obviously, but it has a bleeding heart, which is quite weak. So what did you want to express with this?
Well, I mean, obviously, Alejandro would tell you, better than I can. But one of the things about this deck is that it we have changed the suits. So we have hearts, which are quite obviously for cups.
I think you can put it down now.
I can put it down. Cool. We have hearts for cups. We have arms for swords. So you have all the little hands there. So one of the things that I was explaining while you were away, Kirsten, was that anybody who's familiar with the Tarot de Marseille will be able to look at this and kind of understand the tweaks. I mean, it's exciting for somebody who doesn't have Tarot de Marseille experience, but if you do, you'll be able to look at it and say, oh, I can see how there's things have changed in some of the cards. Things that you recognize will have been switched around so that you can look at the cards from a different angle. We have legs for wands. I have a table here full of cards going everywhere. And heads for coins.
That's really interesting. It's a totally weird style. It reminds me of this Renaissance garden in Rome, where I don't know the name of it, but you have monsters everywhere. There are statues of monsters. I really like this. And right when you were when you showed them, I was reminded of Peter Greenaway. I don't know whether you know him, because he always does this very beautiful art and then puts in quite horrific elements. So actually, I think we really need Alejandro to talk about this. But you are writing at present a book, right?
Yeah, I mean the book is
okay.
But we are, we're just editing it and adding little parts to the book. But yeah, I mean, you get cards like this, and essentially, you can look at that and still have the same meanings associated with strength, but you see, the animal has changed place with the woman, so you kind of get this idea that the beast actually taken over rather than the woman taming the beast. So it just kind of adds a whole different view to the cards, and it makes you think. Sometimes you might look at a card like that and your traditional ideas around the strength card will come into play, but sometimes you might look at it and think, oh, maybe this isn't a day where I can tame the beast within. Maybe the beast within is me by the throat rather than the other way around. So it's interesting. It's like a twisted fairy story.
It's really interesting. And well, since we have William here, perhaps you tell us a bit about your cooperation with Artisan, because apparently you can't get this deck at Amazon, just via Artisan, as far as I know. Perhaps you can tell us a bit what Artisan does, because I think in London you talked to me about them, and it sounded really interesting as well.
Yes, so Artisan, they create many historical tarots. They restore historical tarots, and we've had the Condor has been restored, the Dodal, the Noble, and they do such a beautiful job. And the reason that I got to know them was because of their decks, and I built up a relationship with William and Kirsten there, and and if you're one of those people that likes a good card stock and you like good colors and all of those beautiful fine details in cards, then Artisan is the place to go. I mean, we have these lovely wax, what do you call them, like the kind of the playing card. Maybe William can say in the comments what kind of stock this is, but it's that lovely waxy playing card feel, and as soon as you use a deck, they glide. They're beautiful. So we talked to Artisan about the possibility of doing this, because up to that point, Artisan had been working on historical decks and restoring them as faithfully as they could to the originals. But this was a little bit of a departure, because this was taking something that people understood and kind of blowing it up, because Alejandro and I didn't see the point of just doing another restored deck, because artists had done them so wonderfully already. So, you know, what was the point of doing that? So we wanted to do something that really kind of pulled on our imagination and our creativity. One of the things I think we was going to speak about, or I started to speak about before you came back, was that once we got the drawings, we had all of these line drawings, which were great. Alejandro had done them all by pen, but we didn't know what we were going to do with the colouring. And he sent me two different versions, and one of them was how it would have looked back in the day when you had the really bright, extreme colours, and the other one was like this very aged, antique looking deck. And I know what people are like in the tarot community, and people love to work with things that look like they've been around for however many hundreds of years. So
Yeah.
Alejandro painted them very faithfully to, you know, they look like the old woodblock cards. So I don't know if you can see that they are stained. You know, each one is different as well.
Yeah, they look, the frame looks stained as well and stuff like that. Yeah, lovely.
They are really, they're lovely to work with, but you do kind of feel like, even though you're working with something that is a modern version of a historic deck, you really do feel like you're using something that is centuries old. It's a strange thing. And the new, you know, the new elements into the cards, like the hearts into the cup.
It's really gruesome. But on the other hand, love stories are often quite horrible. So
you know, there's some bits in here, you know, there's just some crazy parts, and it's another great thing about this deck is sometimes you don't always notice. I mean, we have somebody here with a nice big leg, and you know, you use them in that kind of way as well. I mean, if you wanted to use them elementally, you can, but you kind of get this idea of legs being about action and movement, you know. And if you are reading perhaps with other cards in an open reading way, you know, you've got people handing limbs to other people, you know, and that can like inform your interpretation sometimes. You know, you're being handed a leg, or you'll be handed some support, or some, you know, an opportunity for action. So it can be really exciting. The death card as well here we have.
wait. Wow.
You know, so you have that, you know, you very much, you see what you see in historic tarot decks, but you also get that idea of what comes next, the transformation.
Really interesting.
It is really interesting. It's I mean, you could even argue that is quite a positive spin on the card, because we can see how something is growing from something that is ending.
Yeah.
So it's a great project to be part of. You know,
Yeah, I think so too. And I really want to talk about, give it more space and talk about it in a more organized way than today. So Alejandro didn't show up, but he said in the beginning he wasn't feeling very well. Perhaps he went to bed, basically, because he had something with his ear or something.
He's got a throat infection.
Yeah, so throat infection.
Oh, he's back. I can see Alejandro is back.
It was the never-ending story today.
Hey.
Alejandro, I'm very happy that you're here now. We just we talked about the deck. Stephen told us how the two of you met up. What he didn't tell us really is how you came up with the idea of putting these very, well, I would say sometimes gruesome details into the Tarot de Marseille deck. Perhaps you can enlighten us on that.
Well, I was playing with the idea back like 5 years back. I don't remember, like in 2015 or 2018, I was playing with the idea of doing something with the Tarot de Marseille, because you see a lot of clones or versions of the Rider-Waite Smith deck, but it's difficult to find a version of the Tarot de Marseille other than restorations. There are beautiful original artist versions of the Tarot de Marseille, like the Tarot Noir, Patrick Valenza. I think I've never said that before, but I took a lot of influences or references from I would say inspiration from Patrick Valenza's work, Triunfo de la Luna. So I don't know if you're familiar with that deck.
Can you say the name slower?
It's Patrick Valenza. It's the creator of the Deviant Moon Tarot. It's quite famous.
Of course, yeah, I know this deck, yeah.
But he's got this other deck that is a Triunfo de la Luna, which is kind of it's a Marseille version, and a lot of some people have compared it with mine somehow, and I just felt like I needed to do my version, but I wanted it to look like old. It's a vintage deck, like an old deck that somebody just discovered in an old library or something. And so I started to make the first drawings. I showed them to Steven, and I asked him, what do you think? Do you like this? Would you buy this? It's important too. Would you use it? Would you read with a deck like that? And so that's how everything started to be cooked, I think.
So before we went live, you showed us some lovely drawings of you. Do you still have them close to you, or did you put them away again?
They are
because
here.
I would like to show them to people. Stephen already showed us the esoterik, but let me see. Yes,
So
I mean,
that's the way I made all the images of the tarots of ambiguities. I use first I take the cardboard and I try to make it age, to look like age. So I use coffee and tea and spit it over the cardboard and make it look like old. And then I use a fountain pen, a black fountain pen, to make the drawing. So these three drawings, I made them after the deck, but they're inspired in the universe. Let's call it the universe of the Tarot of Ambiguities, and also the Tarot de Marseille, for the postcards that came along with the deck when you pre-ordered it. So we made these three postcards. So this is inspired. They're inspired in the work of some artists that I really like. Like this is inspired by Alfred Dürer. I think a lot of people from Germany here, so you might be familiar with. I think it's Albert Dürer is the name.
It's Alfred. No, Albert Dürer.
Okay, yeah. I don't know if I can. I don't. I didn't want to butcher German. Sorry.
He's great. I really like him as well.
This is inspired by William Blake.
Yeah.
Work of William Blake, and the last one, first and last, Goya, Francisco de Goya. Those are artists that I really liked, so I tried to recreate one of their works, and I colored everything digitally using Photoshop, and then it is printed. If it is okay, it is printed.
So you are into a bit of morbid art, I would say.
Maybe.
It's just what comes to my head when I think of these artists and your drawings. So I just.
Well, I think Goya is the one that is morbid, because William Blake is not that. William Blake is more like symbolic or
Yeah,
spiritual.
but together with his texts, I think he's not a cheery guy, is he?
I like art to be spicy, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, so to make you think, not only to create something beautiful, but also to create something that could be thought provoking, that could open your imagination. And that's what I try to do with the tarot of ambiguities. Is I try to create a deck, a tarot de Marseille deck, that is not afraid to laugh at itself, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because tarot decks, especially tarot de Marseille, during that time, during those periods when they were printed for playing, for having fun, not for doing spiritual readings or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We forced the tarot to become an oracle, to work as an oracle, and then became the thought deck, the Rider White, the Rider Waite, the White. I always say it right wrong. The RWS.
Never mind. You know what you're talking about.
And some other decks, that were created specifically for divination, but the Tarot de Marseille wasn't. At least that's what history tells us.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I wanted to play a little bit with that idea.
How did you come up with these kind of quite bloody details? Stevens showed us, for example, the Ace of Cups or the King of Cups, and it's quite, for me, it's quite bloody. I mean, I like the art totally, but I'm thinking, like, could I show this to a person who wants consultation? You know, I think it's not. I would find it difficult to do that. For me, for myself, it's great, but I just think somebody sees this, they might get scared if they're new to tarot.
There are some people that have been scared with the dead, that they don't like it, and that's okay. That's okay. If you do something that everybody likes what you do, then there's something wrong there. That's what I think. So I really cannot tell you where those morbid, let's call it the morbid, ideas came from. I just can tell you that it just came, and I let myself be carried out with the feeling. I felt so inspired. I was drawing like one card practically every day. So I tried to follow that energy that comes from a place that I really don't know where. That's art, you know. It just comes to you, and you embrace it, and you try to give it to the people. That's it.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to understand what I did.
Well, that's really good art then, I think. If you're doing something and only later reflect what has happened. Yeah, great. So we need to discuss the deck in a few years, actually. When you know what you did then. No, I
don't think that. Well, that's me. I know some people don't like it, and that's okay. But I don't think that this will be morbid or will be like. I mean, it's just a drawing. It's not. Those are not really like real hearts. Yeah, like real hearts. It's just a drawing. It's just a drawing. So I don't know. It's not like I'm showing you a real heart bleeding with real blood.
Well, I just know how people react when I show them the Three of Swords in the weight version. So for me, I hope you're not insulted, because morbid for me is a good word. I like morbid stuff. So for me, this is totally okay. I'm just trying to put myself into the position of a person who comes for a reading, because I'm doing reading also all the time. But for me personally, I'm really drawn to these cards. And I said to Stephen when we were away that they remind me of films by Peter Greenaway, because he always does some very beautiful setting, and then there are some details in it which are quite scary. And I like this breaking of perfection or of beauty or whatever. So for me, this is totally okay.
And the tarot is morbid, especially the tarot Marseille. So we have the death card, which is a skeleton.
Yeah.
Skeleton cutting heads and arms and legs. It's cruel. So in my version, I try to give it some life to the image. So that's why all these vines and flowers and leaves are growing from the chest of the skeleton.
Yeah.
Because he's transforming this black soil, but there's also he's sowing it, but there's also something growing from inside.
Yeah, I like this a lot.
So not all the cards are are bleeding.
No,
severed limbs.
But I think it's good to have balance too, and if you think about the blood that's in the cards, blood is life, isn't it? It seeps out of the heart, and sometimes you could look at pain as blood as being associated with pain, but you can also look at it as just being associated with the blood that pumps through our bodies,
And in my illustrations, I see blood as passion. It's like an overflowing emotion, like in the cups or hearts. There's so many emotions, so each heart is beating, and I don't know, it's like a very intense emotion. So that's the way I see it.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Intense emotion is a very good word for that. Yeah, I like it a lot.
And it's important to notice, I don't know if you talked about this before, that I changed the suits, but it's like a mutation. So you see a heart is combined with a cup. You still have this base here, this 10 base. I don't know. Sorry for my lousy English. So every suit, every element of each suit is a mutation. It's not that I just took away the cups. You still have some reminiscence of the cups here. The same happens with the other suits, with the other elements. So we have swords here. There are arms. The hands have mutation. So there's this wavy swords, scimitars or kimitars. I don't know how to spell it. That swords, curved swords, merged with the hand, with the arm. So it's a mutation. You still have this thing that you see in these elements that you see in the Tarot de Marseille.
Yeah. Well, I think people are getting an idea of the whole deck. I really, what I would like to do is I would like to have the two of you back soonish, because this was really not a good start. I'm so sorry for this. When is the book coming out, Stephen?
I'm not completely sure when the book is coming out, but it will be this year. We really are in the last parts of the process now. We're just going through it. One of the things that I was talking about earlier is sometimes when you're reading with this deck, you kind of get these downloads, you know, and I think that's very much what Alejandro experienced when he was creating the deck. You know, he got these visions and these ideas, and he downloaded them, and that's why when he says, you know, I'm still trying to figure out what it was I did, he, you know, a lot of that kind of came through you, maybe, Alejandro, when you were creating the deck. And I had a similar experience when I was writing the book. Sometimes I would kind of get these floods of ideas and feelings, and I would put them down. So when we went back to read over the book again, sometimes some of that needed to be a little bit refined. So we're kind of going back and kind of checking those out to make sure that people who are reading the book, that this is as clear as it possibly can be for anybody, you know, because the Marseille isn't the for a lot of people, it can be kind of an intimidating tradition. So we really wanted to create a book that would be easy for people to get hold of and understand, and also to kind of show how, when we're reading, we come to the conclusions that we do. Sometimes you might look in a book about the Marseille and it'll say, well, you know, we've got this card and this card and it means this, but they don't often show you the workings out or the process that the reader went through to get to that interpretation. So we try to do that as best as we can, and that's kind of taken a little bit of extra rewriting and a little bit of adding some more details when necessary. So it will be this year.
Okay, and the two of you wrote the book together?
Well, I wrote it, but you know, in the same way as with Alejandro and the cards, I would send him.
It's changed on it.
Yeah, I would send him like, here's the Four of Cups, here's the Judgment card. What do you think? And then Alejandro would get back to me and say, yeah, I think that's really great. I think sometimes Alejandro thought that I was actually reading his mind.
And it's interesting because in the book you're having Steven's interpretation of my illustrations, not mine, but there's some ideas there that like belong to me because we somehow see the tarot in the same way, you know, or in a very similar way, I would say. So that's why when I was reading the write-ups he was sending me, I was like, most of the time I was like, he's reading my mind. And it's interesting also to notice that he even saw more things, new things that I didn't see, that I didn't were aware of when I was creating the illustrations. But I don't want to get into details because I don't want to spoil the book.
So you really need to keep the exchange, because it might be once as famous as the one between Frida Harris and Aleister Crowley.
Maybe something like that, yeah.
I believe it will be a modern classic at some point, because there isn't anything like this, you know, and I think we are at a point now, I think, especially in terms of tarot creation, where there are a lot of decks which are doing the same kind of thing. You know, we've seen a lot of clones of decks over the years, and I'm not talking about restorations. I'm talking about versions of the Rider-Waite-Smith in this style and that style and this style. You know, I created one myself, but this kind of takes a tradition that people are familiar with and then kind of turns it on its head to some extent. And gives them like a different doorway into it. And so in that sense, and because it's so beautiful as well, it's such an appealing deck to use, I think that, you know, it will be one of those decks that stands out in tarot history. That's my opinion.
And it's important to say, it's important to say too, I don't know if you said before because I just arrived, that the book is very comprehensive. It's not only for reading the Tarot of Ambiguïtés, so you can use it, all the knowledge that it's in the book, to read. You can apply it to other decks, but especially to read the Tarot de Marseille.
Yeah, I think it's great to have more stuff out on the Tarot de Marseille anyway, because it's going to be one of the major decks in a few years again. I think people are tired of clones and futuristic decks. They want to go back to the roots, which I think is a great idea. So I'm all in for that.
Mm.
I need to come to a close now because my boy is coming home. I expected to have it more structured. I'm really, I'm not doing my best German job here today.
Don't worry.
We are efficient. So William agrees on the coming back of the Tarot de Marseille. So yes, anybody who's still out there, I know you are going on and off on all the different channels I'm showing this video. Please join the newsletter of Artisan, and you can tell us about your free lectures, Alejandro. That is interesting still.
Yeah, in that lecture, I try to first I speak about my journey and everything to USA, because I'm Cuban, but now I live in the USA, because that deck was important during that process. And then I just try to talk a little bit more about everything we have discussed here, about the deck, about the creation of the deck, about why. I even give you some written examples. I give my personal interpretation of the new elements in the suits and why, and the way I see it. So if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about this deck, you're free to go to join that lecture. Is for free.
Yeah, sounds great. I saw the announcement, but right now it's really hard to do anything because it's still New Year's lot of stuff to do. There's a dog somewhere.
Yeah, it's here. It's a chihuahua. It's a little chihuahua.
Okay, the little chihuahua wants to go out, obviously. My little boy is heading home from football. And Stephen, what are you doing now?
Well, I'm just going to retire for the evening. I have the bunnies, so.
That's what I was going to say. That maybe some of Steven's rabbits can show up over there.
Okay.
I dropped all the cards over the floor. Actually, just before we went live initially, I opened up the deck and had one of those moments when the whole deck just fell all over the floor. And I was watching the countdown, and I was trying to pick them all up before they got ravished by the. So,
well, you know, we still made it. We are really pleased with ourselves that we never gave up. And so I will turn to you, and we will make another schedule, and we'll have more fun. So for the time now, I say goodbye to everybody out there. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for joining, and I wish the two of you really good luck with your project. It sounds really interesting and amazing.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to say?
I don't know.
Thank you for being patient.
Okay, so I close for today, and I'm back with my live chat on next Tuesday, next time in German again. Speak to you later. Bye.
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 Gonna be hard.